a year ago. I spent an entire summer adding a fencing character to my fencing-based fighting game. But despite him being the entire point of my game, none of my friends chose to go ahead and fight each other. Every single person gravitated towards the one-off samurai character, Musashi. Who could blame them, right? He was the coolest, he was the fastest, he was the strongest, he was the character who got his own tier on the tier list. But guess what? He only had 2 moves. That's it. He could slash and slash. Again.
Really loving this.
He was nothing, yet everyone chose him over the character I spent a whole summer on. Even the first character in the entire game didn't even matter, and that did not sit right with me. I mean, come on, I put so much work into the fencer just for him to be ignored. So, of course, I decided to work even harder. For the last 7 months, I worked on this one character so that he could be deserving of all that love. Even worse, I worked so hard, he has even more than all the other characters combined. And he got 3 stages. 3! Each character has 1, he just has 3 stages. And I made a whole new system mechanic just for him. I'm not here to explain my game, because honestly, it's no longer what it once was. It used to be described as a fencing-based fighting game. Sometimes fencers just want to run at each other, but kind of now, if it's gonna be based on anything, it's a samurai movie. Musashi is based on, well, Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary Ronin. He founded his own sword style, based on being fluid and taking whatever means necessary to win. Now, I've read his book, the book written about him, and the manga written about him. And let me tell you, this guy was crazy. This man taunted his rival for years, and when they finally dueled, Musashi just showed up late, as in like half a day late. It was already sunset, and when Musashi finally arrived, he took an oar, one he used to paddle there, carved it with a sword, and instead of like using said sword, he used the oar. So stupid, but guess what? Musashi won! With a wooden oar, he hit like a 360 inverted jump attack on the best samurai there was, and then just left. That was enough for me. Ever since reading that book, I've been infatuated with samurai media. References to samurai films like Seven Samurai and Yojimbo take up my room and my game. But as a fencer, these naturally went together. In fencing, one small touch is enough. In samurai duels, one small mistake is enough. Finally, Musashi taught and lived his sword style, the use of 2 swords as a means to adapt to opponents. Therefore, throughout this video, the goal is to make Musashi fluid and adaptive. Henceforth, he is now a stance character. This is an archetype in fighting games in which a character can enter different stances, each having its own unique moves. So, to adapt, Musashi players can simply switch to another stance, and that's how Musashi won 61 duels after all. Wait, I didn't mention that. Yeah, he won 61 duels! This guy was crazy! Really, Musashi might be the most complex character I'll ever add, just because he is completely up to your interpretation as the player. Opponent keeps retreating, switch to a 2-sword style, and rush in, then utilize a multi-hit attack. Opponent keeps rushing in on you, switch to a 2-sword style back, and take advantage of the huge range, quick jab, and defensive parry. Opponent maintains distance well, switch to 0-sword style, and use ranged attacks for mix-ups. Opponent doesn't really matter, you just want to play a strong, well-rounded character, switch to 1-sword style and have a balance of everything. This is a basic, all-rounder stance, perfect for any situation. It is a bit slower, that's the main downside. However, its moves are completely dependable, not too fast that they're overpowered, but definitely not too slow. I drew a walking animation for it, and then when I started thinking about attacks, I recognized that Musashi already has a slash that moves forwards, right? So, I gave him a slash that moves backwards. This is a backslash, but not just any kind of backslash. This goes right into 2-sword style. Now this is important because that's the core of Musashi's Nichi Ichin Ryu, which I definitely just mispronounced. Musashi boasted his 2-sword style, and in this animation, at the end, Musashi draws out his wakizashi, the shorter katana. This can be seen as a big advantage to this move. However, it can also be a downside. The main upside is that it's a 2-hitting attack, meaning that if the opponent is within range, they have to parry twice, or else you get a point. However, this is forced, not optional. So if the first hit misses, you are stuck in an animation that produces another hitbox. If you miss the first attack, your opponent can easily just parry your second one and land a riposte. Or, since it's so telegraphed, your opponent could just step back and do a big attack. And because it switches stances, you cannot just spam this. You could spam that slash from earlier, but not this one. If you use it once, that's it. Now you're in a whole different stance. Finally, wait. This is crucial. You don't always want to switch stances. You may prefer one and just stick with it, as each is fleshed out enough to be its own character. It is completely plausible that a player would prefer one or two stances and remain in those for most of the game. Or you may want to switch to adapt. Adapt to the stage, the opponent, their character, their playstyle, anything. Anyways, since I was experimenting with attacks going back and forth, I made a move that steps back, charges up, and then slashes at the opponent as he flies forward. This is a strong bait and punish. Its range is great, but it does have that big downside of such a long telegraphed startup. Can't spam this, your opponent will easily react. I keep talking about spamming. You know what? For a long range poke that you can spam, Musashi got a lunge attack. It is a great all-rounder move, with enough range without costing too much startup, nor in lag. If used wisely and spaced correctly, even if your opponent parries it, they will struggle to punish you. Okay, well, the opponent could punish your lack of speed. What if the opponent just walks backwards? So, I gave Musashi something I was never gonna give him, a jump. How often do you see samurais jumping, right?
It's like a sumo wrestler. It's like,
Shut up! And it has a landing animation, which disables inputs for a few frames. This means jumping can be risky. Oh, but the benefits. This is an air attack from Musashi. It has low startup and a great hitbox. Also, here's some forbidden tech. If you input it near when you land, it has little in lag, only being the landing animation. Also, it could be spammed during the jump, which, yeah, that's not fair. I fixed that, don't worry. Finally, it gives Musashi a boost in the air. So, being able to jump enables Musashi to maneuver vertically and at the threat of the opponent. How can you even counter this? Musashi cannot change directions mid-air. Usually in anime fighting games, jumps are fluid. You can air dash around the place, change the direction, whatever. But in more traditional fighting games like Street Fighter, once you jump in a certain direction, you're stuck going that way. Therefore, it's best to not directly challenge Musashi as he's jumping, but to instead back up and punish, or vice versa, rush in and parry, and then punish. Remember how the backdash goes into two-sword style? Well, before covering that, I just have to show you a map that I made. This is Snowy Field, for lack of a better name. Really, it should be called
Renjuan Temple.
Renjuan Temple, because it is based on Musashi's duel with I'm not gonna try, from the novel Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa. My favorite part was the snowy fight with the Yoshioka school, in which all the bad guys are looking everywhere for Musashi, and they're like, where is this guy? And then he just jumps off of a roof and just like kills them. And then just leaves. It's like, what? Okay. Remember, this guy was crazy. So, this stage is based directly on that fight. I drew this Japanese-style house, which I'm quite proud of. The dummies are pretty cute, so I felt a bit guilty drawing arrows in them. After my first rendition of this stage, I hated it. The tree looks like it was just put there for no reason. Snow. At all. I just don't like no colors. I do like the dummies. I think they're pretty cute. Eventually, I enlarged it to a new aspect ratio and canvas size. The smaller pixels definitely saved this stage from being deleted forever. I deleted half of this forest, then rehauled what remained. Then I added clouds to the sky. Next, I decided to experiment. I tried out Godot's blades of swords in the snowy hills, as if it's a forgotten battlefield. Finally, for the first time ever, I split up the layers into different groups to create a parallax effect. That's the visual effect of the background moving slower than the foreground, as if the background truly was farther away. In my horrendously ugly tall grass stage from a year ago, I had grass in front of the player, but that was the extent. Now, there are multiple layers of differing parallax, which adds gorgeous depth to this stage. Finally, I tried to draw snow falling, so for the first time ever, I tried Godot's particle system. And just like that, doesn't that look amazing? Especially since the snow is also split into parallax layers. Whoa, come on guys, come on. After all that, the stage looked great. There is one more thing I have to cover. For the first time ever in my game, attacks can clash. There is only a slight moment that your attack can clash, and it turns off hitboxes for the rest of both attacks. It can stop you from getting hit, however, you don't always want that because your attack would also be cancelled. Therefore, this should add some complexity to my game right away. You may want to go for clashes at times that parries are risky, or during times that you're on the disadvantage, and you want to somehow defend yourself, yet try getting a touch. Like, there's so much to this game, right? There's a lot to think about. I'll just let you be. However, if there is one takeaway, it's that making particles is weird. This was my first time ever making particles that, I don't know, look cool? Yeah, the snowy stage had snow, but these spark particles gotta explode, they gotta glow, they gotta go in different directions and pop and swirl and fall and glide and fade away. Fortunately, I am a kid with a lot of time on his hands. After a lot of hard work on these system mechanics, the game is looking and feeling better. Now, back to Musashi. Two Sword Style is characterized by its pressure. It is under the rushdown archetype, which is the most popular archetype in fighting games. Not only does it boast the fastest walk animation, but Two Sword Style also offers dashes, which Musashi doesn't have otherwise. Well, spoilers for later. Never mind, you know what? This ability to quickly close distance cannot be found elsewhere in Musashi's kit, which is not even true. Okay, anyway, so the backdash is a separate animation. There's a dash animation, the first for Musashi, which can only be inputted by Sho, the core character, and I don't think the fencer really has one. It's more of like a step forward, which does other stuff. That's called a Rekka, by the way. Pretty cool. So, Two Sword Style's backdash is actually faster than the forward dash. That's pretty weird, right? Well, this is because it ends sooner, giving a slight edge to players who want to bait an attack, quickly retreat, then punish. But of course, the downside is, if you go backwards, you lose right of way. Even more so, the pressure comes from multi-hit attacks. Remember the backwards overhead slash from earlier? It hit twice, but not like this. Before, there was enough of a gap for the opponent to react. Now, the opponent has to parry twice. They cannot risk interrupting this attack. The hits are so close to each other that a frame trap is created. In fighting games, a frame trap is a minuscule gap in between attacks, which gives the opponent enough time to spam an attack. But if they do, the gap is so small that they get hit during it. Basically, think of it as a bait for opponents who tend to spam attacks up close or after they parry. How else is this amazing rushdown pressure even balanced? Well, the Two Sword Style parry has less active frames and a lot of in-lag. In other words, it's very easy to mistime the parry for this stance and get punished for it. Therefore, a smaller parry window makes the stance much riskier, with less forgiveness for a mistimed parry. So if you're going to rush in on the opponent, you have to be good at defense as well. Even worse, the repost is just lethargic and very easily punishable. Although it does have great reach. And it's also just a copy of the One Sword Style lunge. Anyways, so in conclusion, Two Sword Style offers a risky playstyle. It challenges you to close the distance and apply pressure up close. Otherwise, the opponent could take advantage of the risky parry and telegraphed attacks. If you attack out of range, the opponent's just gonna laugh at you before just simply touching you and, oh, they got a point. Just like all rushdowns, the pressure is great, but risky. If you can't close a distance, then have fun playing the game. Musashi's gained so much, right? But that's not even all for Two Sword Style, and not even half of what Musashi would eventually have. But to get to that, we have to tackle this stage first, the best one I have ever made. Miyamoto Musashi had a lot of media made about him, largely thanks to the aforementioned novel. For example, the Samurai Trilogy. The third film is by far the best one, called Duel at Ganryu Island. And guess what I drew for right of way? Ganryu Island. Oh, you might be asking why? Well, I drew Ganryu Island from Duel at Ganryu Island just so that you could duel at Ganryu Island. Whoa. Anyways, spoilers for Vagabond fans, but at the end of the Musashi novel, Miyamoto Musashi and Kojiro Sasaki, the two best ronin ever, dueled on that very island. Well, okay, well, if that's a spoiler, you are 413 years late, because that is a genuine historical fact. Anyway, so inspired by the most important event in Musashi's life, I suffered to painstakingly draw Ganryu Island. And then now, oh, at first it was this mess. I don't know what happened. I spent a whole hour just on this, whatever this is, and then it became this colorful canvas of vomit. Oh, look at that. Okay. It also does not look right, but it's something. Now for Ganryu Island. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it. Ganryu Is it Ganryu? I don't know. Oh, so it does not look good. That's one way to put it. The sun looks very dark. I don't know if you know this, but the sun is not dark. You see, the point of the sun, for some reason, color picking the screenshot gave me some really pink colors, and I have no idea why. The scene is not nearly that pink, but it adds personality to the stage, so I'm gonna keep it. Just like that snowy field stage, this was also split into parallax layers, but even more so than before, making it much smoother. Oh, and do you see that glare? That took some programming that was kind of difficult to me. Such little things require so much work behind them, it's crazy. If you're interested in how I made this stage, I'll be making other videos on this Musashi update, just go watch those. The ground of this stage gave me a lot of trouble. Listen, I could go on and on about how I made the sand look better, about how I made it lighter at first and then eventually I added waves, I animated all these waves, took me a very long time, how I created these particles to go with the waves and eventually I had to delete that. However, I'm very happy that I did it because it would help me a lot later on, which I can't exactly show you yet. You see, I could go into all of this, but I scrapped all of it in favor for this. The waves in front of the players match the waves in the background of the stage. Otherwise, it kind of looks stupid, let's be for real. There's no splashing yet, that's gonna be in a later video when I can figure that out. But I did add particles for like bubbles and stuff. I'm pretty proud of this. I think this stage is beautiful. I've talked about it enough. You can go watch another video for that. Let's move on to 2 sword style 1. B, whatever. There is one more move I made for 2 sword style. A lunge that transitions into 2 sword style, but with the back turned. This originally was going to be its own little thing, but I drew the turnaround sprite and this had to be its own stance. It was just too cool. Normally, it takes a second to make sprite animations look fluid in Godot, but when I inserted the add velocity functions in the animations, it immediately turned out like this. I have not changed this animation since. At the cost, it conjured 2 sword style 1 into existence. This meant my work was far from done. For example, what do I even call it? So I'm calling it 2 sword style 1. That's kind of confusing, like is it 2 swords but 1 sword? So you'll hear me say both of these. It's either 2 sword style 1 or 2 sword style B. Because it's like 2 sword style was the A and then this is the B, but B also stands for back. Anyways, yeah. So I drew this seamless idle animation, which made 2 sword style 1B whatever official. Also, I gave 1 sword style an unfinished taunt-like animation, which enables the player to skip 2 sword style to go straight into 2 sword style 1B thingy whatever. Next, it needed a walk animation. However, should the walk be slow or fast? Well, what even is 2 sword style B? We're missing the quick draw archetype, but that has to be saved for later when I finally tackle 0 sword style. So 2 sword style B will fill the big body, one shot, committal footsies, bait, and punish role. Yeah, okay, this one is difficult to explain. Let's look at Nagoriyuki from Guilty Gear Strive. This huge vampire samurai guy is a big body character, meaning he is slow and has large committal attacks. However, he is classified in-game as one shot. This is because, well, okay, how do I put this? If he hits you, it's a one shot. Basically, he trades off movement and health for, well, your health. Even ignoring the whole samurai thing, 2 sword style B is pretty similar. Both trade off movement for large attacks, which can be horrifyingly fast. So, 2 sword style B's walk is slow, however both can commit to a risky but really fast dash. These dashes are far more committal than simply walking, but they offer great bursts of speed. Speaking of speed, Musashi has a wakizashi jab. This is extremely fast and non-committal, allowing safe pokes to help scare the opponent into a comfortable distance. In fact, the parry is almost the same animation, but with slightly different frames and VFX. Musashi players could abuse this, as the opponent would have to discern whether it's a jab or parry, and by the time they finally do, it's already too late. Unfortunately, large attacks are physically difficult to implement. The wakizashi is just short. Meanwhile, the katana is on the whole other side. So I found it nearly impossible to draw any animation in which Musashi swings at the opponent without taking a step. At first, it may not be intuitive as to why I can't draw that. I mean, I've drawn all these weird animations and I can't draw someone swinging a sword across their body. But I have a little demonstration to you to show why. This is a katana. This is a nodachi. Now, Musashi didn't use a nodachi. That was Kojiro Sasaki. However, this is much shorter than this. Imagine this is the wakizashi. You jab, parry, do stuff like that. But this is the big katana. How am I going to get this katana over there? I could swing. But that's pretty stupid. Jab, swing lunge. But I've already drawn that for 2 sword style. That's pretty unoriginal. So the idea is, with this being the wakizashi, Musashi takes it behind his torso, pivots his torso, and swings this. Wakizashi goes behind, pivot torso, swing. All this leaning and twisting and bending and all that is, of course, a bit difficult to draw. Otherwise, if Musashi were to swing the katana, he'd have to switch stances into 2 sword style. Honestly, that would be pretty cool, but I don't want to draw that. Really, I made 4 characters for this one video. This update has taken me way too many months. I am sick of drawing this character. But then Musashi came to me in a dream, and I witnessed something. I realized that in samurai duels, samurais tend to have their katanas raised above their heads. That's it. Musashi has to raise his katana to his ear. I drew exactly that. I gave it an entire idle animation. I fixed the ugly arm and... Wait. It has its own... Wait, I gave it its own idle animation? Is this seriously another stance?
2SS1R is categorized by its complete inability to move in favor for fast, huge attacks. This slash shown on screen has a large hitbox and only takes #2do insert frames here amount of frames to be active.
Just ask me for the frame.
However, it switches back to 2SS, and since you cannot simply lower your arm again, going into 2SS1R name in progress is high risk, high reward. After all, you are unable to even walk back and forth, said with excitement. One major downside of this stance, slight pause, is that it cannot... Okay, let me read it on. One major downside of this stance...
that it can't even walk.
...is that it cannot parry, nor does it have a riposte, because you cannot parry without a riposte. Developers behind Right Away thought it would be too unfair to give Musashi a parry in this stance, as it removes the risk factor.
No, it's because I
Therefore,
don't feel like
consider this stance when you want to give your opponent an ultimatum. Retreat from you, or feel your wrath.
Who wrote this?
Scary music.
The sheet just disappears. Does no one else notice?
That will be all for this video. Thank you for watching.
Dude, stop.
Like and subscribe, and follow the Instagram @EmeraldYT to see every addition to Right of Way and what happens in Emerald's life. I'm not being paid enough. I'll go make a union right now. I will demand more money. You cannot stop me, Emerald.
A year ago, after finishing The Fencer, I tried making a stage based on the samurai movie Harakiri. It turned out ugly.
Okay.
Oh no.
I parried it, but like...
It's time to lock in, Giannis.
So, for the Musashi update, I completely redid it. I finished it pretty quick, maybe within 2 or 3 hours. Yes, hours. That's a small amount. 3 hours is a small amount to spend on a stage. I do this for you guys, be happy. Anyways, this is embarrassing, but only after 700 hours in Sprite, more than my most played game on Steam. Love you, TF2. I finally discovered the spray paint tool, quite literally just on the right side of the screen. I never used it. This made drawing the grass so much easier. In fact, the grass in front of the players was my biggest concern, as I didn't know how to animate it swaying in the wind. Even now, I don't know. I messed around with selections, rotations, resizing, and then settled with this. I copied clouds from the snowy field stage and put them here, although I'm tempted to delete them entirely and just make it nighttime. Finally, the towers were redrawn much larger. They can also be found in my 3D Zombies game, which is a whole nother video on this channel. Let me shoot! Funnily enough, the stage there is also based on the same exact scene from the same exact movie. If you can't tell, I do like samurai movies. Anyways, I created wind particles, a pleasing last touch for this huge improvement over my art from a year ago. 0 sword style. It's finally time to end this character. This is what Musashi originally was, a quick draw Aedo-esque character. But what's Aedo? You see, in real life, Aedo is the art of quick draws. It can be found in fighting games as the cliche we all know and love. Unsheathing a blade, immediately resheathing it, and suddenly air itself parts as the world is cut through. Or a character teleports behind another, clicks his blade back into his scabbard, and his opponent just drops dead. Listen, I really love this archetype. I love it. I mean, my favorite fighting game character ever, Johnny from Guilty Gear, is this kind of archetype. What? Dude, what? He looks so beautiful. And so I had to make it for Musashi. I made him an Iato flash cut, a slow, controlled priming before slicing so fast an after effect remains. Originally the after effect looked horrible, but now it's pretty good. However, that's not all. Musashi also has a teleport cut. You know, what I was just talking about? Yeah, exactly that. He charges up and then teleports behind and then does a slash. I cheated a bit. This uses the same animation as before, except the frames are a bit different. And during the teleport, Musashi slides forwards. So if you're amazing at right of way, you studied the game, you watched all the devlogs, which you should all do, then you might be able to react. However, the difference between them is not big enough for it to be realistically reactable in the middle of a match. Therefore, Zero Sword Style is not just an Iato stance, it is the stance of conditioning. You start off in this stance, so your whole goal is to condition your opponent to do what you want. For example, just keep using the flash cut. Your opponent's gonna get annoyed. They're gonna think, oh, this guy's just spamming long range moves, but I can get him on his early startup. And then you act like you're gonna do it, and then boom, Zatoichi flash cut. Or your opponent might think, oh, he's gonna do it again, right? I'm a parry. And he's waiting, right? He's timing it right. And then instead you teleport. And the teleport takes longer to start up. So your opponent's parry just whiffed, and now you get a hit. The downside to all of this, Musashi's new parry, this clap, it's horrible. It has very few active frames. If you miss, I mean, it's just over for you. Just uninstall and never play the game again at that point. Come on. By the way, I'm proud of these visual effects. They're pretty good. Huh. Okay. Sanjuro is a samurai movie, the sequel to Kurosawa's Yojimbo. The final scene directly inspired what Musashi would get, the Sanjuro flash cut. This final scene was super important. They only had one shot at doing this. Accidentally, to no one's knowledge, the blood prop had built up way too much pressure. So when the super important final take was recorded, every time you see over-the-top blood in a film, game, anime, etc., think of Sanjuro and how this scene quite literally influenced media forever. This is by far my proudest artwork yet. Well, it won't stay my proudest. Anyways, so the blood VFX was difficult, very difficult. However, since I spent so much time already playing around with particles, I pulled it off. For example, remember that wave crashing VFX from earlier? Yeah, the double particles then directly inspired me to give this blood spray 2 separate particles. And there it is. I'm so proud of it. I'm proud of how much my art has grown over this whole process. Initially, I just wanted to make this character befitting of being a fan favorite. I wanted Musashi to back up his popularity with all my friends, but now I'm the one attached to him because through him, I have grown so much. I kind of like how silly my game has become. I guess in the end, it kind of is like a samurai movie. It's very silly at times, yeah, but when it needs to be, it can be a bit cinematic.